Okay, good evening, everyone. Tonight's Parsha is Parsha's Matos. It's a double Parsha, Parsha's Matot-Masei, and we will be discussing part of Parsha's Matos. And the Torah tells us at the beginning of the Parsha, Isha Kiyido Neder Lashem, a person who makes a vow to Hashem, a Yishavah Shvuah, or he makes an oath, Le'asar Yisar al Nafshay, to bring about a prohibition upon himself, or an obligation. Lo yachal devaroy, he shall not desecrate his words. Whatever comes out of his mouth, he shall do. So we have here the Torah talking about yidar neder, making a neder, which we'll translate as a vow. A yishavah shvuah, which means swearing, making an oath. And what I would like to share with you is the thoughts of the Sefer HaChinuch, not from this week's Parsha, but back from Parshas Yisro. And the Sefer HaChinuch there is talking about the mitzvah, the third of the 10 commandments of Lo Yisisa Hashem Elokecha Lashav, do not bear Hashem's name in vain. And we'll talk soon about, I'll share with you soon the thoughts of the Sefer HaChinuch, because the thoughts that he shares are very relevant to this pasuk that we just read. In the pasuk we just read, we talk about a neder, a vow. What does that mean exactly? And a shvuah, an oath. So from the words of the Sefer HaChinuch, we're going to get an understanding about what the difference is between a neder, a vow, and a shvuah, an oath. And also some very interesting insights at what the essence of a shvuah, of an oath, is. Now, when the Sefer HaChinuch discusses, as I mentioned to you just before, the Sefer HaChinuch is going on the mitzvah, the third commandment of Lo Yisisa Shem Hashem Elokecha Lashav. Do not bear Hashem's name in vain. And that's actually talking about swearing. When you're swearing, one swears in the name of Hashem. He swears by the name of God. And when the Torah talks about a Shem Hashav, that means to bear Hashem's name in vain, that refers to the Sefer HaChinuch, an oath, a shvuah, that is a oath in vain. That is what this specific prohibition is going on. Making a oath in vain. Mentioning God's name as part of an oath in vain. A vain oath, or saying Hashem's name in vain, means you make an oath that is pointless. There's no point to it. The Sefer HaChinuch explains that this can actually manifest itself in 4 ways. Number one is to swear about something that is obvious. To swear about a pillar of, let's say, a pillar. The first example he gives is to swear about something known to be true that it's not. Like swearing about a pillar of marble that it's a pillar of gold. Now, truthfully, it's more than just pointless, it's false. But he focuses only on the pointlessness of it. And so to anything like this. The second angle is, for example, that he swears about what is known to be so. Like about a stone, that it's a stone, about a tree, that it's a tree. Okay, that's pointless. You're not saying anything false, but there's no point to it. The third angle is that he swears to negate this commandment or the commandments that God blessed, he commanded us. Meaning to make an oath that you're not going to keep a mitzvah. That's pointless. You have to keep a mitzvah. And the fourth angle is to swear to do something that you don't have the power to do. To swear that you're not going to sleep for 3 straight days. Not possible. And therefore, it is a pointless oath. There's no point to it. You're swearing to something that you can't do. So these are the 4 examples when he talks about a Shem Hashav, what we call a Shvuah Shav, a oath in vain. In vain means there's no point to it. He explains the Sefer HaChinuch when he talks about the shorish of the mitzvah, the understanding of the mitzvah, the essence of the mitzvah, is that to say Hashem's name for no reason is not going to instill the kind of awe and respect that we have to have for Hashem. And as he writes, that's some reading from the English Sfaya translation, it is for people to know and fix in their souls and strengthen the faith in their hearts about God, who is in the heavens above and exists forever, there is nothing else like his existence. And it is fitting and obligatory upon us, when we mention his great name upon our actions and upon our words, to mention it with fear, with awe, with trembling, and not like those that joke and speak about something light, such as the things that exist and perish and do not continue to exist, like as people and the other things of this lowly world. Hence, to fix this matter in our hearts, and that his awe should be in front of us to give us life and merit, it obligated us in this commandment that we not mention his holy name pointlessly, and punish with lashes the one who is lenient and transgresses it. So we have the prohibition to swear in Hashem's name for no reason, pointless. The problem with that is that if we are to be in awe of Hashem, then that awe should be so great that we would never mention his name for no reason. Because Hashem is not just like a person, it's not just like some kind of thing. Hashem is Hashem. And the kind of one respect and trepidation that we have should be that whenever we mention his name, it should be done with the utmost respect. And to swear in Hashem's name pointlessly is disrespectful to his name, which really is a very strong insight into when we make a bracha. When we make a bracha, we say Hashem's name. Okay, we're not saying it in vain, but are we saying it with the proper awe and trepidation that should be said when saying Hashem's name? Because as the Sefer Chinuch tells us, this is the whole point. The whole point of not saying Hashem's name in vain is in order for us to understand and to feel the awe and be in awe of Hashem, and to make sure that, as he says, and it fitting and obligatory upon us when we mention his great name upon our actions and upon our words, mention it with fear, with awe, with trembling. In essence, that's how we're supposed to say Hashem's name. If you say it in vain, if you say it for no reason, then you're clearly not saying his name in that respectful way that is meant to instill within us the awe of Hashem. So we're told not to say Hashem's name in vain, because that would take away from the respect to Hashem's name, the awe that we should have for Hashem when mentioning his name. And how should we be mentioning his name? As he says, with fear, awe, trembling, to a tremendous reverence when we say Hashem's name. And that's an important lesson anytime we say Hashem's name, as in a bracha, as when we daven, and not to treat saying Hashem's name just like saying anything else. Now, the Sefer Chinuch continues and says that based on this, we could also now to come to understand another type of oath, and that is to swear to fulfill something and not to fulfill it. This, writes the Sefer Chinuch, is called an oath of speech, about which another separate commandment comes in Parshas Kedoshim: you shall not swear falsely by my name. Okay, as one who swears by the great name of God to say something was, okay, so the Sefer Chinuch is talking about like this. There is something called a Shviyos Bitui, a oath of expression, which basically is the term that is used when you make an oath to do something or not to do something. When you swear to eat something and you don't eat it. The same idea about the fact that when you make that kind of oath and you don't keep it, that also is going to be a problem of how we treat Hashem. It's a sign of the disrespect to God. Now, how is that? So he says that let's say you have a person, one who swears by the great name of God. Typically when you swear, okay, well, it depends. You know, Shua speak, you don't necessarily saying Hashem's name. But if let's say you do swear by Hashem's name to say something was, and he knows there is falsehood in his mouth. You know, it's not true. You're swearing in the name of God. You know, it's not true. Behold, he is acting lightly with the awe of God, as in the pointless oath, as if to say in his heart that he, being God, is not true. Which means, when you swear by Hashem's name, which in certain circumstances, that's the way you make the oath, you're basically saying that Hashem's name is true, that as Hashem is true, his existence is true, this statement that I'm saying is true. It's as true as God is true. Well, if what you're saying is not true, then really what you're saying is, then you're saying something false, then what you're implying is That what I'm saying is as true as God is true. And if it's not true, God forbid, that I'm saying the opposite. That would be if a person were to make that kind of an oath, saying Hashem's name and saying something untrue. The statement that you make for Hashem's name means to say that what I'm saying is true as God exists or as God is true. Well, if what you're saying is not true, then basically what you're saying, chas v'shalom, is God is not true. Therefore, says the Sefer HaChinuch, and so the one who swears to do something, now we're talking about again, the Shvuah speech to do something, and afterwards does not do this, behold, and here in this case by Shvuah Spitui, you don't necessarily say Hashem's name. Behold, also among the rebels against light, the deniers of truth. You're doing the same thing. You are denying the truth of Hashem. As the understanding of swore, Shavua, as it's called in the Torah language, in Hebrew, is according to my opinion, says the Sefer HaChinuch, that he concludes in his heart and says with his mouth to fulfill that thing that he swore about, that he will never change it. Just as God, may he be blessed, exists and does not change forever and ever. That is what the essence of a shavua is. When you make a shavua, when you make an oath, that what you're saying is, and again, the oath he's talking about right now is to do something. You swear to do something. What you're saying is that I am deciding and expressing that the thing that I swear about will never change. It will happen. And it's not going to change just as Hashem exists and doesn't change. What I swear about, I'm saying will come into existence as God exists. And what happens if you don't keep that? What happens if you don't do it? Then what you're basically saying is, you said that you were going to do this as God exists, and if you don't do it, so what are you implying about God's existence? How are you treating God's existence? And the Sefer HaChinuch says, and this is why the expression sworn, nishba, always comes in the passive. The word for making an oath is nishba. That's a passive form. Nishba means to be sworn, actually. It actually means to be sworn. Meaning to say that he is acted upon by his words to make it exist, just like he said about just like he said about God's existence, blessed be he. That is what you're doing when you make a shavua. When you make this oath to do something, what you're doing is, with your expression, you are now bringing upon yourself this obligation to bring this thing that you spoke about into existence as God exists. It's going to happen. It has to happen. It can't change as God's existence doesn't change. That is the essence of this shvuah. The shvuah that you make when you say, I'm going to do something, is where, with your words, you bring yourself into this obligation to make what you said come into existence as God exists. That's what you're doing. You're not just, I promise. That's not what you do when you make a shvuah. What lies in a shvuah is, this will exist as God exists. That's what Sefer HaChinuch says. Even and the way I understand it, and even without saying Hashem's name, there are times where you make an oath in a Beis Din, and in that situation, take that back. Do you say Hashem's name in those cases? I know you hold the Sefer Torah in certain cases, but I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, that is what a shvuah, in essence, is, a Sefer HaChinuch. What's interesting is that it bothered me. I don't have an answer to this. Is that if this is what a shvuah is? So going back to the pointless shvuahs that he said before, the shvuahs in vain. So let's say the person goes ahead and he makes an oath where he swears that this wood is gold. Right? He says about this pillar of wood, it's gold. He swore to it. What was he saying? What in essence is he saying when he swears to that? The same way here, it would be a shvuah means it has some kind of connection to God. It would seem that's what you're doing then too. And you're saying, I swear that this is wood. Meaning just as God exists as God exists, this is wood. That's baloney. That's not true. If it's not true, so really, it's not just pointless. It's the same kind of falseness as mentioned by a person making an oath to do something he doesn't do it. So I don't know why the Sefer HaChinuch only focuses on the shav, on the pointless there, at least when he's explaining the mitzvah. What exactly falls into the specific prohibition of the Torah? Okay, there's a pointlessness to that, and therefore it's shav. But it's interesting to me that when he talks about the shorish, the root of the mitzvah, the understanding behind the mitzvah, clearly pointlessness has its understanding of not having the proper reverence for Hashem when you say Hashem's name without any for no reason. But it would seem that some of those examples also carries this shorish also, not just because of the fact that it's a question of are being respectful to Hashem or not, but even more specifically, it's very similar. It's the same type of disrespect that you have when you make an oath. You make an oath well, in those cases before, by the Shvuah Shav, those examples, I believe over there, you are saying Hashem's name. That's my understanding. In those cases, you actually are swearing by Hashem's name. Here, you're not even swearing by Hashem's name, and it's the same idea. So either way, of course, he's saying it's a similar idea of showing disrespect to Hashem, but it would seem to me that the reason given here by the oath to do something, you don't do it, is stronger than just pointlessness, which would apply before also. And he doesn't say that it doesn't go back, but it would seem that it should do that too. All right. Now that we've established Sefer HaChinuch has established to us what is the essence of a shvuah, what is the essence of an oath, and that is that what you're making an oath regarding that you're going to do or not do is the idea of bringing upon yourself the obligation to bring something into existence, and you're going to do it, and it's not going to change as God exists and doesn't change. That's what a shvuah is. Now, the Sefer HaChinuch tells us what's a neder. What do you do when you make a neder? Basically, an oath, he said, is I put myself. Just make sure I get the words. I'm saying the words right here. He brings upon himself an obligation to fulfill what he swore about, and it's never going to change. Okay, so it's something that he now put upon himself, right? Nishba, he has been sworn. His words have acted upon him that he now has to bring this into existence, and he's not going to change. And regarding a vow, a different approach pertains to it, says the Sefer HaChinuch. And it is like placing something permissible into the category of the forbidden. And as if he would say, this and this thing, which is permissible, will be forbidden to him like a sacrifice that God, may he be blessed, forbade. When you make a vow, what you're doing is you're taking something permissible and you are now putting it into the category of forbidden. Something permissible became forbidden. Just like Hashem tells us that when we take an animal that's permissible and we consecrate it for a sacrifice, Hashem says, you've now made that permissible thing forbidden. When you make a vow and you want to make something forbidden to yourself, let's say, so as he says, the wording is, you will say this. You say carbon ze alai. This thing is a carbon to me. That doesn't mean it's a sacrifice, but it means I want this to be forbidden like a sacrifice. When you make a vow and you take something permissible and you make it forbidden, you don't just say it's forbidden. You have to say it's forbidden like something else that you can make forbidden. So when you say something can be forbidden, you say Hare alai carbon. This should be like me, carbon. This should be on me. This apple should be on me like a carbon. The same way a carbon is something that we make it forbidden. It was permissible bringing it to the realm of being forbidden. Not only can I do that when it comes to a sacrifice, I can do it in any way. I can just make it forbidden. That is what you do when you make a neder. And when that is what the Torah is talking about, and how do we know that when you do that, it affects the thing that you made the vow about? And that he says, that's this week's Parsha. When we read in the Parsha, the Torah says, Ki yidar neder LaHashem, a person makes a vow to Hashem, and it talks about the oath, lo yachal devarav. You cannot desecrate, he may not desecrate his words. Like everything that he does, he has to do. Lo yachal devarav, not to desecrate his words, is going on the neder. When you make a neder, when you make a vow, which means you take something permissible, you make it forbidden, and you did it in the form of saying it should be like a carbon, then we see it works, and you cannot go against your words. If you go against your words, you transgressed a prohibition of the Torah. And as the Sefer Hachana continues and says, the whole idea here about what you are doing is the same power of consecration, of hektish. And this matter is similar to consecration, as we have found in the Torah, that a person has the power to consecrate what is his with the words of his mouth. They will immediately be forbidden to him and to the whole world. As the pasuk says, and if a man consecrate his home to be holy, it's forbidden. So too does he have power over himself to forbid things upon his body, upon himself. Okay. This is their saying in the expressions of vows, behold, it is upon me for speech, meaning to say, he distances that thing from him. He has the power to bind himself with the prohibition of that thing, just like he has the power to forbid his possessions. A person can create a prohibition on something for him. That's what you can do. It's even possible to make a prohibition. Let's keep it simple. You can make a prohibition on something for yourself. You can make something forbidden to someone else also if it's your object. If you take your object, you can create a prohibition on it. And when you create the prohibition, as he says, you say, Hare alai, it's upon me. It's upon me that this thing becomes forbidden. For me, it's forbidden. That is the power that I can do. And the same way, by a carbon, by a sacrifice, I can make it forbidden. By a sacrifice, make it forbidden. It's forbidden for everyone. When I'm not consecrating something to the Beis HaMikdash, I'm making a vow, I just want to make it forbidden like a carbon, then that's something that I can just make it forbidden for myself. And it will be forbidden only for me and not for anyone else. So the difference that we have now between a shvuah and a carbon is the difference, okay, as to what is the nature of what I'm doing. And he brings this out very interestingly in the following example. Okay, if a person makes an oath, I'm not going to sleep for a day. He has now obligated himself not to sleep. Okay, he's obligated himself. It's something on him, as he said before. The Shvuah says that because it's a nishba, I'm being sworn, it's my words now affect me to bring this thing into existence. If I say I'm not going to sleep, then I can't sleep. I have to fulfill that. When I go, so I can do that. But I can't make a neder on sleep. I can't make a vow on sleep. Why is that? So he explains. Since the oath lodges upon the body of the person, meaning to say that his body is obligated to do that thing, right? It's my body that it's affected. Okay, so can I bring upon myself an obligation not to sleep? Yeah, because my body is substantive. Me, I have substance. And therefore, being that the oath takes effect upon me, or as the wording they have here in the English, it lodges upon the bodies of substance. Okay. However, a vow only rests upon something that has substance, as it is like him placing something into the category of other things that are forbidden, meaning to say that thing X will be forbidden to him, like the category of the sacrifice forbidden to him. And if there's no substance to that which he is placing in the category, he's not done anything, and it's nothing. If you want to bring something into the category of being forbidden, you want to make something forbidden. That's what a neder is. The neder is lodged upon the object. The neder is affected in the object or upon the object, and therefore it's the object that becomes forbidden to me. Well, if there's no substance, there's nothing. I don't have any object to do anything with. But this is a very important principle, and it makes many differences between a shvua, between an oath, and a neder. The shvua is on the person. The vow, the neder, is on the object. And therefore, you have to have an object. If there's no object, there's nothing for the neder to take effect on. There's nothing to bring into the category of forbidden foods as you do when you make a carbon. A carbon is a thing. You make something forbidden. So too, the neder has to be something forbidden. It has to have substance. If that's the substance, it's not an object. It's not a thing to be able to make a neder upon. Okay. Now, another difference in halacha that comes up between a neder and a shvua is the following. You cannot make a oath, a shvua, upon a mitzvah. You cannot make an oath, I'm not going to do a mitzvah. But you can make a vow that could possibly prevent you from doing a mitzvah. So for instance, if you make a shvua oath that I'm not going to shake the wool of an esrog on Sukkot, doesn't work. But if I make a vow and I say that esrog is forbidden to me, or I say an esrog is forbidden to me, that's going to work. Why is that? Okay, and the answer is because as one who makes an oath speaks about his body, and his body is already obligated in that manner from Mount Sinai. The Gemara says we all took an oath at Har Sinai to keep the Torah. Well, if I already have the oath to keep, I can't make an oath not to keep. There's no place for that oath to take hold in me. The oath has to bring me into this obligation to bring what I said into existence. I can't do that because I already have a preceding oath upon me to keep the Torah. However, when you go ahead and you are talking about a vow, as he says, but with a vow, he's only speaking about the object that he wants to bring into the category of the forbidden. And about this specific object, he was never obligated. And hence his new prohibition rests upon it. Okay? And this is what they said, that the one who makes an oath forbids himself to the object, and the one who makes a vow forbids the object to himself. And therefore, if I go ahead and I make a vow on the object, I have the obligation to go ahead and take an ul of an esrog. But there's no obligation on the esrog. I have to take a ul of an esrog. But the specific object itself, this specific object, I'm not obligated upon. I'm not obligated upon it, right? This esrog, I'm not obligated. I have an obligation to take an esrog. This esrog? No. And so too, perhaps, I was thinking about this, and I do believe it's true, you can forbid all this regime in the world upon yourself. It's going to stop doing the mitzvah. Okay, because the mitzvah is upon myself. I have to take an esrog. But there's nothing saying which one of those esrogs I have to take. And therefore, being there's no specific esrog that says I have to take that one, then the vow has its ability to now take its effect on the object. You can't swear not to do a mitzvah, because when you swear, you make an oath, that forbids you, if that forbids you to do this. Or in the case of, let's say you say, I'm not going to eat that apple, right? It's not the apple that becomes forbidden. I am the one now, I'm forbidden. I forbid myself to the object. Why? Because I made an oath. I have to bring into existence, I have to keep the promise, the oath that I made not to eat that. When you're talking about a vow, you're talking about a neder, and I say that apple is like a carbon, I have forbidden the apple on me. That's the difference. An oath is on you, a vow is on an object. And depending on how you can be trying to do the same thing. You're trying to forbid yourself from eating the apple. But depending on the wording and the form of halachic effect that you're trying to use, it'll make a very big difference in halacha. Number one, it can make a difference in halacha as what's going to be. Now, again, in the case of the apple, it's practically not going to make any difference. But depending on how you try the wording that you use, and therefore the nature of how you're trying to affect this prohibition, for instance, one, if you make an oath, it's on you, it's on the person, and that has its ramifications. And when it's a neder and it's on the object, then the object is going to be, then the ramifications come out of the fact that I have brought the object into being a forbidden object, like a sacrifice becomes forbidden through my words. Okay, so this is some interesting concepts that to know about one of the first psukim in the second pasuk in this week's parsha, when it talks about making a neder, making a shvua, making sure you keep it. This is the nature of what we're talking about. Now, one last thought that I want to share with you is that after the Torah concludes discussing the vows, it talks about the war against Midian, the Midianites who were part of bringing the Jewish people to sin with women, and a plague came, decimated the Jewish people, and Pinchas went, killed Zimri, the prince of the tribe of Shimon, with the Midianite princess. And after that was all done, Hashem told Moshe that the Midianites have to be punished. And the Torah tells us, Vayishlach oisa Moshe elaf lamata latzava. Moshe sent 1,000 soldiers per tribe. Oisem ves Pinchas ben Elazar hakayin latzava. They and Pinchas son of Elazar hakayin to the army. Klei hakodesh and holy vessels v'chatzos hatrua b'yadai, and trumpets in his hand. So Moshe sends soldiers and he sends Pinchas. The commentary Baal HaTurim points out he didn't send the princes. And although there's no mention of sending the princes, Hashem only told Moshe to send the soldiers. Moshe sent Pinchas along. Baal HaTurim seems to be saying the princes, the leaders of the tribes, if you had representatives of each tribe, the princes should have come along also. That's something that would have been important for the point of the war. And the point of the war was to bring back the honor to Hashem's name that was desecrated through the Midianites. The princes belong there, but Moshe did not send them. Why? Says the Baal HaTurim, he did not send the princes with them, because the tribe of Shimon would have been missing its prince, because their prince was Zimri, who Pinchas killed. So if all the princes of the tribes would have been sent along for the war, the tribe of Shimon would have been missing its leader. That would have been very embarrassing to them. It was better not to embarrass them. Although it was very important for these princes to be there, Moshe understood, but not at the expense of embarrassing the tribe of Shimon. It's an important lesson for this time of the year when we work to create Ahavas Yisrael, to go out and create friendship and peace and harmony and love amongst fellow Jews, because the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of sinas chinam, because of hatred that existed. This carries a very important lesson of how important it is that we uphold the dignity of someone else and never cause them any embarrassment. Have a wonderful evening.